Well, we got through that without it being too much of a disaster, which could be the tagline for every book in this series so far. Welcome to Dead Good Book Reviews, I'm Judith, and today I'm taking you through the journey that is Animorphs Book 8, The Alien. If you're new here and you're wondering what's happening, don't worry, I've forgotten everything that happened to you. I will put a link to my Animorphs playlist so you can watch and catch up. Or you can dive in straight away with this one. Who am I to tell you what to do? It's now been a full year since the first book of this series has been published, and we're now on book 8. Just in case you're forgetting the pace at which these were being published. Let's look at the cover. I think this is a masterpiece of everything we've come to know and love in these covers so far. Number 1, a child in an iconically 90s outfit who looks like he was just kind of at a photo shoot and had no idea he would become part of such an iconic cover image. 2, a nightmare fuel middle element. And 3, a weird but kind of intriguing quote. He's only human when he wants to be. I get the reference in that last one, that he's only human, but if you just change the inflection slightly, it just sounds cross. Or, that one's only human when he wants to be. The rest of us have to walk around in these silly meat sacks all the time. Ugh. Let's get into the book itself, shall we? For the first time ever, we have a book that does not start with the traditional opening. I know. I imagine this was deeply shocking to fans at the time. The prologue is essentially filling us in on Axe's perspective of everything that happened up until this point. Axe is the guy on the cover, in case it wasn't clear. We have the space battle that caused Axe's brother Elfangor to fall to Earth, where he gave the Animorphs their mighty morphin powers. We have Axe's meeting the humans from his perspective and his vow to avenge his brother. Imagine picking this up if you hadn't read the first 7 books, and just how deeply confused you'd be by all of this. It's a lot to take in the first 6 pages. We open in the thick of the action that we've come to know and love from the series, where the 5 of them are talking about how Axe can only go and see the first half of the movie because he'll have to demorph halfway through. Thrilling. Axe is still calling Jake Prince Jake, which fills me with no end of rage, but there we go. I really like having Axe's perspective because we get to learn fun new Andalite words. Andalite word of the day, Nothlit, someone who is stuck in morph. Tobias is a Nothlit. Chapter 2, and they've made it to the movies. Things Axe is confused by. Popcorn, trailers, the screen being flat, the fact that you just eat the popcorn, not the container, that you shouldn't crawl around on the floor and eat chocolate. But you cannot justify this by saying, I merely wish to eat the brown globules, to a screaming child. Unsurprisingly, this means they have to leave the movie theatre. Tobias, who either didn't want to or wasn't allowed to have a break, is on patrol outside the movie theatre, and it's a good job he is, because he says there are police and potentially Yeeks coming. Apparently it's taken this long, a couple of weeks, I'm not sure of the passage of time, for the Kandrona destruction. They destroyed the Kandrona Ray in the previous book, if you didn't remember, to do anything. But now they witness the Yeek dying inside a man and him being freed from the Yeeki influence. The humans are hopeful that this is going to mean that everyone suddenly discovers the Yeek and they don't have to be responsible for saving Earth anymore, but Axe knows better, he just doesn't tell them. Kind of a theme of this book. Again, I thought of telling them the truth, that the human was already gone, that the Yeek slug would crumble into dust, that no evidence would be left behind. But even though these humans were my friends, even though we fought side by side, there were secrets I could not tell them. I could not tell them how a race of parasitic slugs had come to be a danger to the entire galaxy. I could not tell them why we Andalites had to fight the Yeeks, why we had no choice but to fight them, why we hated them so deeply. We have secrets, we Andalites, and the greatest secret of all is our own guilt. Place your bets now as to what the Andalites did. Go on, place them. Chapter 4 begins with Axe doing his morning ritual, which I thought was quite nice, until it became a bit culty and ended with the destruction of enemies, my most solemn vow. We learn the name of the law that Axe's brother broke when he gave the Animorphs their powers, Zero's kindness. After some contemplation from Axe, we get into what I thought was going to be the main plot of this book. Axe is going to school. But before that, let's obtain the DNA of a rattlesnake, just for no reason, no particular reason. It's not going to come back in the book later. Just might be convenient at some point. Don't sweat it, Tobias said. But speaking of taste, you realise there's this big mystery about you. A big mystery? Yeah, no one wants to ask you because they think maybe it's rude, but everyone wants to know how you eat with no mouth. How I eat? I replied, puzzled. Well, I have hooves, don't I? I don't really want to explore that any further. We continue on with the day, they're headed to school, and Axe contemplates as to whether Tobias could be his Shawn. Andalite word of the day, Shawn, a true friend who you would never lie to and to whom you tell all your secrets. The word Shawn means tailblade. See, it's supposed to mean a person you would trust so much that they could put their tailblade right up against your throat and you wouldn't even have to worry. You know, friendship. But apparently Andalites can never be friends with another species, so Tobias can never be his Shawn. Chapter 5, and Axe has arrived at school. It's then made quite clear that this is going to be Axe's first and only day at human school, which makes sense because he'd have to miss quite a lot of school to kind of go and find a loo big enough for him to transform into a scorpion, deer, centaur, and then back again. The elaborate secret identity they've created for him is Jake's cousin Philip from out of town. My other human friends tell me that Rachel is beautiful and Marco is cute. As an Andalite, I don't observe either trait. However, when I am in human morph, I begin to see that Rachel is actually very beautiful. But I never see that Marco is cute. No homo. Things Axe is confused by part 2. Lockers. Photos in lockers. Bells. Now it is odd that they're just letting this random child come into the school and be there, but it's kind of explained. I thought this was quite a large plot hole, but it turns out that K.A. Applegate had thought of everything. As soon as they sit down, Mr. Pardue begins having the horrible experience of having the yeek in his head die. He was a controller all along. But before Mr. Pardue comes around enough for Jake to talk to him, who should come in but evil yeeky Vice Principal Chapman, who very subtly murders both the yeek and the teacher at the same time. For the first time, Jake realises what Axe already knew and what they've done, that the yeeks aren't going to let there be any witnesses to their crime. They're going to kill all the people who've been taken over by yeeks. That includes Jake's brother. Jake realises that Axe knew this and neglected to tell him. Axe defends himself with the horrible statement, "Love the warrior, hate the war." It's both baffling and deeply flawed. This, of course, brings up the issue of trust, and the humans realise that they maybe shouldn't just blindly trust Axe. That brings an end to our time at school, and Marco has gone to hang out with Axe for a bit. Marco started strong, referring to Axe as Pinocchio, which I thought, yeah, the lying, it makes sense, but then goes on to say that he's like playing at being human, which isn't fully the takeaway I get from Pinocchio, and they don't reference the lying at all. But hey, let's take the Andalite to a bookstore. Axe, who is not foolish entirely, realises that Marco's pressing him for information. Well, kind of. They've basically decided that the only way to get Axe to trust them is to not keep anything secret from him. So they're like, we'll tell him all about all of humanity. That's the same as telling him secrets. But Marco left all his money at home, so they've got to go back to Marco's house, quick stop there, grab the money, and then they'll be back to buy the books. Marco, in a questionable move, leaves Axe, a person who has consistently been terrible in human situations, alone in his house while he nips upstairs to grab the money. Axe decides to play a quick computer game on the computer that's just open and wins it. That's definitely going to come up later. He then runs into Marco's dad, who's working from... They have a very odd conversation that, again, Marco should have planned for this. Why didn't... He knew his dad was at home. But Marco swoops in at the last minute and sort of rescues them and gets them at the door, and is just left with his dad thinking Marco has a really weird friend. A chapter later, and Axe has discovered the wonder of books. We learned that it actually took humanity less time than the Andalites to go from the first flying machine to landing on the moon. Humans, we're behind, but we're catching up quick. But the Andalites are still quite far ahead of humanity, so let's not overstate things. Andalite word of the day, estrine, a person who is able to make morphing beautiful, aka Cassie. Moving on a little bit, and we discover that the gang is quite understandably a little bit pissed at Axe, because that game he played at Marco's house was actually Marco's dad's job in some kind of technological physicsy-ness, and Axe may have accidentally created a whole new branch of software. Axe feels bad for approximately 5 seconds about how he may have pushed humanity into a future they weren't necessarily ready for, but then he realises maybe he can use this to his advantage, because if he links this up to a telescope of some sort, a radio telescope, he can be able to contact through Z-space and get to talk to the Andalite homeworld. But at the same time, there was another truth. I had to destroy this technology. I had broken the law of Ciro's kindness. I had given the humans a huge advance in technology. So he does feel a bit bad. But instead of telling them this, he just lies again, because it will stop him from seeing his family, even though all that we know about these kids so far is that they'd be completely down to help him with that plan. Next chapter, it's nighttime and Axe is having an existential crisis. He starts to kind of internally justify the fact that he's broken this really important law by saying it was an accident, that he didn't know he was doing it. Cassie shows up to interrupt his introspection. He tells her the Yeeks are probably scared of the humans because their advancement is so fast. Cassie realises Axe is kind of lonely, so in a stellar move, because these kids learn nothing, she's like, come have dinner with my family. You can pretend to be Jake. I didn't mention it, but there's a reference earlier to the last time that Axe pretended to be Jake, when Jake was getting the yeek out of his brain, and afterwards his parents made him go see a doctor, so Axe is not great at this. They go to Cassie's house, and they have chili, and Cassie is considerably concerned because we know what Axe's reaction to strong flavours has been in the past. Axe eats the chili and manages to be fairly normal, and Cassie catches it in time for his morph to end, and they leave. Cassie says farewell to him with, well, we got through that without it being too much of a disaster, which could be the tagline for every book in this series so far. Cassie asks some questions about Axe's family. We basically learn nothing, except that he misses them, which is odd because aren't they kind of the royal family? So you'd think he'd have more information to share about them that was allowed to be public information. Cassie leaves, Axe continues to ponder his plan, and he decides that Tobias will probably help him out because they're kind of kindred spirits. Tobias agrees to keep it a secret, and Axe tells him the plan. So it's the next day, and Axe is going through his morning ritual as before. Then him and Tobias fly to the lab that they're planning on using for this elaborate scheme. Ingenious scheme. They are. Good Morphin Rose, Tobias has some top tips for avoiding seagulls and peregrine falcons. This prompts Axe to kind of ruminate on how difficult Tobias's life is. Yet he seemed to have accepted his fate. Was it possible he even preferred being a hawk? Was that why he never asked me what I might know about him being a Nothlit? Remember Nothlit? Or did he think I would refuse to answer? Or worse yet, lie? The shoe fits. They break into the Schmancy lab, and Axe decides that the best way this plan will work is if he is in Andalite form while he does this technological bit, because then he'll be able to quickly morph into his bird morph to get away rather than having to morph through Andalite and out again. The fact that the only way this plan works is for there to be a giant deer, scorpion, centaur thing in the middle of a lab that almost certainly has CCTV, that gives you a bit of an indication of how flawed this plan was from the beginning. Since humans had no awareness of zero space, they did not understand that a powerful radio receiver could be used as a way to create Z-space vacuum and open a cross-dimensional gateway. Science. Axe manages to make contact with the Andalite homeworld, let them know that he is Elfangor's brother and that Elfangor is dead and he is alive. Apparently, despite him being the prince, I guess prince means a different thing, but despite him being that, they don't know that Elfangor's dead. They've got no idea what's happening this end of the galaxy. I forget how much time has passed, but it has been weeks, right? Like, they should know. Axe finally tells the truth to someone and confesses to this person, Andalite, on the other end of the phone. The reason they've had moderate success in dealing with the Yeeks is there are some humans with some morphin powers. It turns out that the Andalite that we're talking to is big on following the law, and instead of focusing in on the I am trapped on a planet full of Yeeks thing, focuses in on the fact that Elfangor gave 4 people morphing powers. And that Axe also has broken the law by advancing technology enough that they can have this conversation. There's discussion of a nebulous bad thing that happened in the past that is the reason these laws are in place. We all remembering the nebulous bad thing? Good, good. But the mean Andalite does point out that the people need a hero, and at the moment that can be Elfangor, but does Axe really want to ruin his brother's reputation that way? So Axe just confesses to the crime that he did not commit. He says, I gave them the powers, even though that doesn't work with the timeline at all. But, you know, I know the temptation to go beyond the law when they're helping a brave people fight the Yeeks. I was an advisor to the Hawk Bashir. They were our allies, but they were not Andalites. They were not our people. I'm so excited to get more of the Hawk Bashir backstory. Have I mentioned this? I'm so excited. Finally, Axe's dad turns up. Was he listening the whole time? No, apparently he was just sort of in a side room waiting to talk to his son who could have been dead. Axe takes a vow to avenge his brother's death, which is apparently very binding, as we're getting Andalites really like rules, structure. But the call disconnects before they're able to really bond again. Who should be there but a human holding a standard Yeek Draken beam? It's a controller. Tobias leaps in to save the day at the last second, as he always does, but it turns out the controller just wants to talk. It turns out that this particular Yeek, Elsin 359, for those following along at home, just wants to talk because he also wants to kill Visser 3 because Visser 3 killed his lady love. We get a full rundown of a Yeek love story, which is interesting, but given that they're like slugs in a pool the whole time, I don't know how I feel about that. Too many Yeeks, not enough Candrone arrays. It was simple division, so he shuttled so-called important controllers up to the mothership and the rest. So the rest die, essentially. But this Yeek has messed up the shuttle ships that are taking them up to the mothership, which is why we got some of the other people dying, like Mr. Pardue at the beginning. That's what's happening. Some of the Yeeks aren't able to get their control arrays. But how are they going to defeat Visser 3? Well, Elsin 359, if I've remembered his name properly. Yes, but Elsin 359 has a plan to kill Visser 3. The point is this: Visser 3 inhabits an Andalite body, and sometimes he feeds like an Andalite. Oh no, we're going to have to learn more about how Andalites feed, aren't we? They apparently escaped from the lab completely unscathed from that. Jake calls a meeting. Remember, he doesn't know anything about this. Axe assumes that Tobias has told him and that they're going to have a long chat about how he shouldn't do any of this terrible idea. But no, the humans don't know, other than Tobias, and they're kind of understandably a bit annoyed about how much Axe has been keeping from them. Yeah, right, Rachel snapped. The information all goes one way. We tell you everything. You tell us squat. Oh, you sound like you're being straight sometimes, but you never tell us anything useful. Me. They accuse Axe of thinking that humans are a lesser species, which, I mean, he kind of does at the moment. Cassie figures out, because she's the best, that the reason the Andalites aren't sharing this information with them is not some kind of lording it over people, but it's actually guilt and shame. Once we were kind when we should not have been kind, I answered. That's all we get. To be fair, I don't know how many books they'd signed up to at this point, so, you know, if it was 50 plus books at this point, then maybe you would want to hold on to some of your eggs in a basket. This metaphor got confused. So Jake lays down the law. If you're with us, you have to be honest with us. Otherwise, I guess you'll have to be on your own. I hate to do that, but you can't be one of us and then lie to us. So Axe leaves. He just heads off. They've kind of forgotten, like, if Axe went evil at this point, he has all of their DNA. He could commit so many crimes in their disguise and they would just be in prison forever. But yeah, it's the next chapter, and it starts with a declaration from Axe that today is the day he will die. Oh good, not dramatic at all. Tobias turns up to help with the let me dissect everything I thought to be true kind of introspection time, but there's no stopping the self-sacrificial train, so Axe heads off to try and kill Visser 3 at the location that the Yik told him to be at. The rattlesnake, that would be the morph to use. What better way to strike suddenly than with the body of a snake? I knew it. As I drowned my fear in the calm lake of the snake's predator brain, I prepared to kill and to die. Dramatic Andalite. So Visser 3 comes down, basically he's coming down to drink and feed in the Andalite way, and Axe strikes him with his snake body. Axe manages to bite Visser 3, despite the fact that his rattlesnake rattles before he bites because he forgot that happened. He's kind of resigned himself, he's going to die, the Hawk-Bajir are going to kill him, but he's managed to bite Visser 3, so it's all going to be worth it, and he'll die basically a hero, it'll be fine. But then, the moment before the Hawk-Bajir kills him, Rachel comes in as a grizzly bear and she just decks the Hawk-Bajir. It's great. You told them, Tobias, I accused him. Yeah, I sure did. I got the idea from you. You're the one who said you had to obey your prince. Well, I guess Jake is my prince too. He ordered me to tell him. I'm not on board for Jake being more people's prince. Honestly, this book should not be called The Alien. It should be called The People Who Do Morally Ambiguous Things. They settle down to watch Visser 3 die. You know, fun family activity. But Tobias is there. Thank goodness. What would they do without him? His hawk vision spots that the slug has got out of the Andalite body's ear and has ran away into the lake. Earmuffs. Earmuffs would solve this. I had faced Visser 3 before. I had felt the evil that flows from him. That evil was gone now. This was only an Andalite. The Yik was gone. Kill me, the Andalite managed to gasp. Kill me before he takes me over again. Please. Please kill me. These books are so dark and so difficult, and they're written for children. Axe refuses to do it, says he can't. It wouldn't be honourable, thus leaving this Andalite to be retaken by Visser 3 to continue to have to commit acts of unspeakable evil across the galaxies. Ethics. Having done all of this, Axe decides it's time to tell the humans about the law of Zero's kindness. Zero felt sorry for the Yiks. They were an intelligent species. They used a primitive species called Geds as host, but the Geds were nearly blind, clumsy, not very useful. The Yiks had never even seen the stars, let alone been able to leave their own planet. Zero felt sorry for them. Zero was a kind, decent Andalite. 50 points for whoever guessed the Yiks are the Andalite's fault. Axe, you don't stop hoping just because it doesn't always work out, Cassie said. You get more careful, you get wiser maybe. But you keep hoping. My memory card and my battery died at the same time. The humans suggest that this beautiful partnership that Zero dreamed of between the Andalites and another race could in fact be with the humans. I don't want to be all 2020 about this, but I think humans are rubbish and we shouldn't sell ourselves to anything. How? How do you eat without a mouth? Marco demanded. Right, Marco. I laughed. We eat as we run. Our hooves crush the grass and the nutrients are absorbed into our systems. We drink in the same way by putting a hoof in the water. It's less weird than I thought. Epilogue. Prince Liram, he's the Andalite that they were talking to earlier who was kind of mean. These humans are my people now, and sir, with all due respect to the law and to you, I won't let the humans be destroyed as the Hawk-Bajir were destroyed not while I live. Liram's eyes narrowed dangerously. You must run in your family, he growled. You're just like your brother Elfangor. I laughed. Thank you, Prince. Thank you very much. That's book 8. The least amount of time spent morphing, a lot of time spent just remarking that humanity is a bit weird, a little bit of action, and then a whole heap of just moral quandaries. I don't think anyone's equipped to make these kind of decisions while also dealing with an alien invasion. I'll leave you with one thing. Axe's first name is Aximile, if I'm reading it correctly. Like, to rhyme with facsimile? Thank you so much for watching. It will probably be quite a while before we do Animorphs 9, I expect. I mean, who knows? But thank you so much for watching, for following this series. Please give this a like, comment below and subscribe. It helps me know to make these because I don't know what you want. Comment below with your favourite moment from this book. I think mine is the bit where he screams about globules at a child. And I will see you in the next one.